it's an exciting prospect to build whole worlds out of nothing but paper and pencil. You get to express your ideas to your friends about what you think is cool about fantasy. If you have interesting ideas about what the species in the world should be, what the calendar should be, how many moons there should be, what the gods of your world are, you can express the ideas of how magic works, where dragons come from, and this is the relationship between dwarves and elves. It can also be an intimidating prospect. The person can sit there staring at a blank page, spiraling down the drain of uncertainty. I don't even know where to start with this. There are a lot of different approaches to world building. The Dungeon Master's Guide has what I would call the puddle method, a mile wide and an inch deep. Spread out slowly, don't go too deep because the players might not be interested in what you're doing, and that way you have not put in a lot of effort into something that you're just not going to use. You don't feel like you're wasting your time. But that didn't work for me. I prefer a method that I call the volcanic island. I have this island that looks to be about a mile wide, and I populate with the same thing everybody else does. There is a small town with some local problems. There are goblins that are kidnapping the blacksmith's son. There are ogres that are trying to gobble up sheep. A witch is trying to make bargains with the miller to try to do whatever. And they're going to deal with those local problems. Enough that I have time to go back and deal with the volcano. What is its central conflict? What is going on with the gods, the deities, the calendars, the planets, all that kind of stuff, so that when the players start to excavate down, when I need to build that island out, I have that same source to build from. And if I need to hop to another campaign, a total party kill or something, I have other islands that are built from that same source. When they start to learn the world, it all makes cohesive sense because it's all pulling from that same volcano. The trip up for many dungeon masters when it comes to lore is the players. There are going to be some players that just do not care about the lore of your world. They showed up to slay orcs, get magic items, level up their character, and feel cool about the badass character that they're playing in the game. They don't care about the lore of the world. And that has to be okay for at least some players. You cannot force them to care about it. There are going to be some players that dive headlong into this, like they might for Legend of Zelda, Star Wars, or Avatar: The Last Airbender. But that is super rare. One of the things that will help convert the player that doesn't care about it at all into someone that at least gives two shits about it is making sure that something about your world is going to be a solution to a problem that they have. Let's repurpose Brandon Sanderson's first law of magic. Put it into the world, and it becomes the player's ability to solve problems with your world. Your lore is directly proportional to their ability to understand that lore. So we have three challenges. Number one, this has to be interesting enough. We need to enjoy world building and designing new content for our world. If we don't, if it's boring, it's going to become a slog. We're not going to want to do it. We are going to burn out. And the players are going to detect that we don't like doing this. They may not be interested, but our lack of enthusiasm is going to come across in our dungeon mastering. And your game is going to fall apart. On the other side, we need to make this something that the players can grasp onto. It can't be too alien. If you make it where dragons are formed by dead spirits coalescing into one gigantic being, that's a little weird. Where do we resurrect people from? Do they pull out the dragon? You can do that. As long as when they meet the dwarf, it is the dwarfiest dwarf that ever dwarfed. That way they go, okay, I can deal with the dragon spirit thing. I can figure that out. But at least I know what I'm doing when I deal with a dwarf. I understand them. They're basically Gimli. The third point is trying to make sure that there's some mechanic in the world's lore that is going to impact what happens in the game. You could do something like Dragonlance does, where the phases of three moons, Solitary, Lunatari, and Nunatari, matter to the wizards. Based on which one is waxing or waning, the schools, red, white, and black, get more or less powerful. Or maybe you do something with like resurrection, that only under a new moon is a resurrection possible. That lack of additional light somehow makes the veil between life and death more transparent, and somebody can step through so that the players, when they want to resurrect someone, have to go through and check the calendar and go, okay, exactly when can we do a resurrection? We got 15 days. Somehow we're going to have to be exactly where we need to be in 15 days to be able to cast this resurrection. Who are our gods? What do they want? Where do they come from? What is their relationship to mortal beings? The gods that we believe in, the morals and ethics of our different religions, are fundamental parts of our culture. Our history is intertwined with our belief in deities. We build giant structures, temples, synagogues, mosques, cathedrals, shrines. How much more impactful would that be in a world where you don't have to take it on faith that a deity exists? There is no question that the Forgotten Realms deities are there, and they impact the world in countless ways. If Mistra dies in Forgotten Realms, which she has, it is going to cause a cataclysm in that world. Even if you don't have deities in your world, something must be there that created this world of magic before the players ever took the stage. And the people of your world, all the different species, have some idea of where demons, devils, angels, and archons come from. Building cosmologies, I think, could be separated into three rough buckets. The first and the easiest is two diametrically opposed forces. Eruluvatar versus Morgoth, Muspelheim versus Niflheim, Gaia and Uranus, Uranus and the Titans and the gods, Tiamat versus Marduk. The sides might have multiple players in them, but they have picked defined sides. Good versus evil, dark versus light, ice versus fire. You could do chaos versus order in a world where there are giants gobbling up people and there are dragons that are torching entire villages. It's hard to convince players that this god that believes in chaos and free will for everybody has any amount of good. You could do it, just you're going to be in for a lot of work. On the opposite side of the pendulum, there are tons of different gods, tons of different religions, tons of different pantheons, and lots of different sides. This is the Forgotten Realms approach. If the players don't like any of the gods that you currently have, just make up a new god. At worst, it's just the same god with a different name, and the players don't need to know that, or you make one that has a custom portfolio just for them. It gives them a little bit of ownership over not just their character, but they're the sole cleric of this religion or something. The downside is it can become hard to make a relationship with more than just a couple gods. If your campaign focuses on Shar versus Selûne, then they're not going to get to meet Ilmater, Torm, Miracule, Bane, Baal, Cyric, all the other gods that your world has to offer. And what was all that effort put into it for in making those deities? That can feel like you're wasting your time. The middle option is where there is a single pantheon, like Greco-Roman, Norse, Egyptian, Celtic. There is a single family unit. There might be things that are outside that cosmology that will come up in opposition to our gods, but currently these deities are the ones that are in control of the cosmos. And you get this wonderful merging of player and character knowledge. In the real world, we all know Loki is a trickster. Loki is not to be trusted. And the characters in the world would have that same experience. In the last campaign, they ran into Loki and he was trying to steal Sif's hair and they had to go recover that, and that led them to Muspelheim or something or wherever they were going. But this is a new campaign, and the characters would still know who Loki is and that he's not to be trusted, but they still don't know what Loki is currently doing. And they're going to have to go talk to him knowing he's not to be trusted. Because they have a relationship to these deities, when they have a problem that they need to solve, they know which deity to go and talk to. If they need to resurrect the dead, they know they're going to have to go talk to Hermes to then get to Hades so they can ask him to resurrect their friend. You do not have to pick just one. You could use them to represent different cultures or ideologies or different religions that are practicing the same thing, maybe some sort of a schism, or they could be different stages in the evolution of your cosmology. For my part, I started off with two diametrically opposed forces, Jinshi versus Asia, Negentropy versus entropy, and from them are spawned all of existence, including my pantheon that is a proper Greco-Roman Norse-style pantheon with gods of different things, and they're all a member of a family. But I also have the elemental planes and elemental spirits, fire, water, earth, and air. And I took inspiration from the Shinto kami to populate that out. So there is a spirit of fire here, of this volcano, of this shrine, of this river, of this ocean, of the sun and the moons. I use that to separate the more naturalist religions with some clerics, but mostly druids, and the more structured civilization religions that we're used to in the modern era. I went with 12 deities for my pantheon, partially because it made it really easy to make 12 months. I didn't have to come up with some weird calendar that has like 15 months or 16 months. And it helps onboard my players so they know when they're looking at a calendar going, okay, we're in the month of Jaius. That's basically October. We know what the weather is like. It also means that there's only 12 different personalities of gods that I have to worry about. And the players can start to figure out who they are and what they care about. And campaign to campaign, they start to understand how the mythology works in the similar way to what their characters are going to understand. I found when I was looking through the different mythologies, doing kind of a survey to go, okay, what do I need? That there are a few things that are kind of universal when you talk about a polytheistic religion. There's different ways you can combine these, but I found there was always a love deity, there's always a sea deity, there's something to do with industry because metallurgy and being able to invent the wheel have been so fundamentally important to humans being successful that we usually give that a deity like Hephaestus. In my world, it's Cataris. Medicine, this is like Apollo. They're usually a knowledge related deity, but they're thought specifically to be empowered to do some sort of healing. Mine is Pharaoh. Then there are the pairings. These are the deities that aren't necessarily competing against each other, but they definitely have kind of slightly different takes on the same thing. Think of like Athena versus Ares. There's the war destruction versus the war protector. There's also like the harvest versus the wild. Sometimes that's a deity with two different kind of views on things or different aspects. I went with two different deities. So there's Shandaya and there's Valori, and Valori is constantly hunting Shandaya across the skies. There's also fate versus luck. Again, you could combine these, but humans seem to largely think of these as two different forces, the Morai in Greek mythology and Tyche, the goddess of luck. There's also the bad guys. Usually these are death and deceit. Like Hades, he's usually cast as the bad guy in modern media. Well, he's the god of the underworld. He must be the bad guy. No, he's not. He's in charge of Elysium as well as Tartarus, and he's the brother of Zeus. And while there's some competition there because he's brothers and these are Greek gods, he would never pick the Titans over Zeus, no matter what Disney has to say on the matter. Trickster deities are also usually categorized as an evil deity, and I'm not sure that's fair to them. Loki usually is, but is Loki all that much more deceitful than Odin? Odin lies all the time. He just gets away with it because he's more sneaky about it. It's harder to pin him down where he's using like rules lawyer way of cheating. Yeah, I said that, and technically I was true. I was right. Okay, but you knew that wasn't what I meant. Where Loki is kind of mean-spirited and petty, he cuts off Sif's hair and everyone knows it's him, which is why there's no doubt that he's not going to get away with it. He's kind of bad at it. He's just a punk. He only really becomes world destructively evil at the very end when he gets Baldur killed, kicking off Ragnarok. And many of the trickster deities are useful to people. In some of the Native American stories, Coyote steals fire, and that's where people get it from. Yes, he did it for his own benefit. He was tired of being cold himself. So they become more complicated characters where, yes, I will help you, and I'm going to get something out of it. And it may not have been something that you would have given me if you knew that it was going to come down to that, but I did help you. In building the cosmology for your world, you'll probably take some reference from real world beliefs, myths, legends, cultures, religions. And that is okay as long as you are being respectful. You have the same right to do so that any author or screenwriter does when they do their creative works. And as dungeon masters, we're inviting other players to come into our world and want them to feel like they belong here. They are welcome at our table, and part of doing so is making sure that who they are and what they believe and what they're interested in is available at our table. It is okay to do so as long as you're respecting the fact that these are real beliefs of real people, either in the current day or in the past. Until next time, Dungeon Masters, remember you're a player too. Try to have some fun.